I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics. MessianicApologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for June the 6th, 2025. What has happened since we last had our talk with each other? What has happened since we last met? It's only been a short day. Right now, what is absolutely dominating the airwaves is the apparent split between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And I remember yesterday afternoon, right after we finished Messianic Insider, I had to go run some errands and then come back home and then post the various shorts to social media that are automatically broken up from that episode. And when it was over, I, of course, checked social media and I was absolutely stunned by how many things I saw. So that's something we are definitely going to be discussing when we get into the news. But we do have an important theology roundup because from time to time in the Messianic community, we get challenged. I certainly will ask a challenging question, which many people don't know what to do with. And sometimes people run off to conclusions which demonstrates, and I mean this with all the love and respect in the world, not a very mature or adult-like attitude. Because all the time my family's been in the Messianic community for almost 30 years, we have seen a definite difference in the way the Messianic community approaches issues of modernity, post-modernity, versus our time spent in evangelicalism. In evangelicalism, you have to deal with issues of the modern world. You have to deal with issues of biblical reliability, criticisms against the Holy Scriptures. If you were in a normal Jewish synagogue, a conservative or Reformed temple, dealing with issues of modernity and post-modernity would be present as well. But for some reason, the Messianic community thinks it is entitled, and this is my experience, perhaps your experience is different, it broadly considers itself entitled to act in an isolationist manner in its own little bubble. You know, being a Jewish believer in Yeshua, connecting to one's faith heritage in the scriptures of Israel, that's controversial enough. And so on all these other matters, you see some very simplistic, even fundamentalist at times, approaches taken. And look, we're in the year 2025. I'm going to be 45 at the end of the year. Tomorrow is my half birthday. I've been getting different offers from various restaurants and stuff. Go buy this, go get this. You get free fries, you get free drinks, whatever it is. We can't put things off for another day indefinitely. So 2 days ago on Twitter or X, I posted this. I said, I remember from high school in 1997 when I told my parents that I had a friend who believed that God used evolution to bring forth human beings. I remember having that conversation distinctly. It was at Movies 14 in McKinney, Texas. Somebody I was in chemistry class with attended First Baptist McKinney. He said that, yes, obviously I believe in God. I'm a Baptist, but I believe that God used evolution. Okay. My parents' reaction was, is he saved? And I suspect I'm not the only person who, reporting that to his or her parents, had the parents respond, well, is your friend saved if he believes that God used evolution? Now, what did I say here? Many unfairly demonize those who believe in theistic evolution. What is theistic evolution? It is the belief that God used evolution to bring forth the human species. Okay, and there are tens of millions of people in the world of religion, both in Christianity and Judaism, who believe in some form of theistic evolution. If you were to go down to one of your neighborhood churches, you'd quickly encounter people who believe in theistic evolution. Many unfairly demonize those who believe in theistic evolution. There are people I know who think that people who believe in theistic evolution might as well endorse LGBTQ+. I believe that is absolutely wrong. We're dealing with apples and oranges on this. Human origins are a reliability of the Bible issue, not a salvation issue. What is the good news? Believe on the Lord Yeshua, the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved. And in our young earth creationist opinion of 6 24-hour days 6,000 years ago. That's not the good news. The good news is believe on the Lord Yeshua and you will be saved. And then you are set on a path of holiness and discipleship where you get into these reliability of the Bible questions. And hopefully the person conducting them knows how to carefully sort through them for people who still wonder about how people got here, how humans arrived on the planet. And is not going to treat people as being unsaved or in some kind of perversion if they're still philosophically sorting through, you know, I was taught evolution in high school, and how do we know God couldn't have used evolution to bring about human beings? There are a lot of people who believe that. Today's Messianic people need to recognize that the vast majority of the Jewish community believes in some form of God-directed evolution to bring forth the human species. That's a fact. If you were to attend a conservative or reformed temple, go ask the rabbi, go ask some of the leaders, how do you think God created human beings? They're going to say God probably used evolution to do so. Now, we don't have to believe it. I don't believe in evolution. But we do need to approach those who believe it with a degree of common respect. And indeed, there are a lot of people who will admit, people I know in the Messianic sphere of influence, oh, it's not a salvation issue, but the way that they act, the way they behave, it might as well be one. And what that ultimately comes down to is they're insecure. They can't easily engage with other points of view that they disagree with in order to better defend or better understand their own point of view, whether it's on human origins or whether it's on something else. But if you are in a Messianic congregation, a Messianic assembly, a Messianic group, denominational situation where they demonize people who believe in evolution, look, we know there are a lot of people who believe this. We talk about it in our discipleship class. We talk about it in our Bible study group. Don't be surprised if your effectiveness on reaching out to the Jewish community is not what it should be. And I think that recognizing that the Messianic community is behind in its apologetics in these kinds of areas because of people who are insecure and immature and not living in the modern world. They think they think that they're entitled to live in these little bubbles. It's not going to help the Messianic community in the long run. We're going to have to be able to engage better with society. We're going to have to engage with people who are non-believers, people who claim the Lord, but they're influenced by worldly philosophies. No different than Paul in Acts chapter 17, what he did at the Areopagus in Athens, or Mars Hill in Athens, engaging directly with the Epicureans and the Stoics. So, yeah, not an easy topic. And, I'm not afraid to bring up some of these inconvenient matters and uncomfortable topics from time to time, because, look, we are in the year 2025, okay? And we have to deal with people who are increasingly influenced by social media, increasingly influenced by modern, postmodern philosophies and scientific views. And as I said, people who associate professing God believers, whether they're Jewish or Christian, who think that God used evolution to bring about human beings, to act like that is quantitatively indifferent than embracing LGBTQ sometimes, that's just wrong, because you're dealing with a completely different issue. And indeed, some of these people, yeah, they're just repeating what they were taught in high school or college. Other people have some kind of scientific background or technical background, and that is what they are convinced of. So are you going to withhold salvation from them when this is a reliability of the Bible issue? Okay, now with all that said, I would like to discuss how theistic evolution has negatively affected some theology, because it's not just a matter of, okay, do you believe or not believe that God could have used evolution to create human beings? If you believe it's wrong, can you present to me from the Holy Scriptures possibly an issue, possibly a theological issue where you believe it has negatively impacted things? You know, if you believe in some kind of theistic evolution, how has that negatively impacted a particular doctrine or theology? So with that in mind, if you go to the Messianic Apologetics website, click on the FAQ tab, Volume 2. So these are frequently asked questions entries where we've been compiling since 2022. We have a volume which is in process. When it gets too big, then we'll think about publishing it. It's not on a particular timetable, but entries are being added and they're being uploaded here. Scroll down to the letter T. These are all in alphabetical order. And here you see Theistic Evolution. So click on that, and then a PDF file will open up. And this is a short entry, but it does concern how a theistic evolution philosophy has impacted an important area of theology. And there are multiple areas, particularly as it concerns the uniqueness of human beings, man and woman, what it might mean to be created in the image of God, what it might mean for the human species to be different from all of the animal species. But here, I'd like to focus on how theistic evolution has actually impacted people's views of the afterlife and what happens to a human being in regard to death and the resurrection. And this is admittedly a topic you have to be very mature about in order to approach it. Because if you're immature as it regards tens of millions of people who believe in a God-directed evolution and how it's affected theology, if you're equating that with LGBTQ types of things, how are you going to be able to engage with some of the issues which it has directly or indirectly affected, and then those issues which may have then in turn affected you, and you may not even know it? Excuse me. So this is our FAQ on theistic evolution. It was included in our update from 2024, Messianics and the Afterlife. To what extent has the influence of theistic evolution in certain quarters of theology possibly affected discussions over the afterlife and future resurrection? And why is this, of course, important? It's important because human beings created by God, created in the image of God, do they have abilities which the animal kingdom at large does not have? Is the death of a human being quantitatively indifferent than the death of an animal? Animals aren't going to be resurrected. Human beings are. And of course, what happens in the interim between death and the resurrection? because human beings have abilities, apparently, which animals at large do not have. Throughout today's broad Messianic movement, there is not a huge tolerance toward having an open discussion on Genesis 1 through 11 matters. That's not good. While there are exceptions to be sure, the significant majority of the Messianic movement, even in the mid-2020s, supports a young Earth creation model and young universe, only around 6,000 years old. When other views are brought up in various congregational studies, those who mention them, even just as a matter of information for others to be aware of, are most likely shut down. As a direct consequence, many of today's Messianic leaders and teachers are ill-equipped to theologically be able to sort through what theistic evolution actually is, much less evaluate how its influence has affected other theological matters. A general resource, such as 4 Views on the Historical Adam by Zondervan from 2023, should provide enough of a framework for those wanting to understand the major positions present in contemporary theology regarding the figure of Adam in the Holy Scriptures. Was there a literal human being named Adam, somehow created from the dust of the ground, Genesis 2:7, or is quote-unquote Adam to be approached as a sort of literary figure? In a theistic evolutionary schema, our Creator God directed the processes of evolution, with the human species eventually reaching a point of development to be able to be imprinted with His divine image. The account of the fall in Genesis is intended to depict how at some point in this process there was a breach between evolved humankind and its Creator, but the actual depiction in terms of eating some sort of forbidden fruit may be taken more or less as allegory. A Messianic person, most probably having a young Earth creation approach to Genesis 1 through 11 matters, should, as a matter of theological investigation, branch out by being informed by some other perspectives, recognizing how the vast majority of the Jewish community, for example, is going to believe in some form of God-directed evolution, absolutely necessitates all Messianic people being better informed on these matters. One tool, although perhaps a bit shocking at first, might be misinterpreting Genesis, how the Creation Museum misunderstands the ancient Near Eastern context of the Bible, by Ben Stanhope, 2020. This book addresses some of the major doubts expressed by one person raised in a missionary family and strongly on young Earth creationism, who then saw what he considered to be various flaws with it, especially as seen at the Answers in Genesis Creation Museum in Hebron, Kentucky. Who Was Adam? A Creation Model Approach to the Origin of Humanity by Fazal Rana with Hugh Ross, 2015, represents an old Earth creation approach for the arrival of humankind, quantitatively denying any form of evolution, but affirming an ancient universe in the billions of years. The Genealogical Adam and Eve, The Surprising Science of Universal Ancestry by S. Joshua Swamidas, 2019, supports an approach to early Genesis as occurring simultaneously with the theory of evolution. Okay, so those are some resources I've referenced so you can get familiar with what the different facets are of this. The main question, as it involves the influence of theistic evolution onto matters of death and the afterlife, concern to what effect a materialistic ideology has altered an examiner's view of the human person. While Platonic dualism has incorrectly viewed the soul as something trapped inside the prison of the human body, is the human person entirely the product of evolutionary processes? If so, when a human being dies, does a human being experience quantitatively the same type of death as an animal? The human being himself or herself being a highly advanced animal. It should be fairly noted how many supporters of theistic evolution do not believe in psychopanicky or soul sleep, but various others are seen to support it. Ultimately, the issue of theistic evolution on human death expectations raises the question of how one approaches the assertion of Romans 5:12. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all mankind because all sinned. 2020 New American Standard. Did the fall of Adam and Eve result in death spreading to just all of their human descendants? Or did the fall of Adam and Eve result in death spreading to the rest of creation? If the former is correct, then it would lend support for human death and animal death being independent of each other, and would lend support to human death being something unique in contrast to the animals. So no, this is not an easy topic for today's people in the Messianic community to review. Do I think that's a good thing? No, I think it's not a good thing. If we're the end time move of God, if we believe we're the end time move of God, then what we need to be motivated by more than anything else is seeing that if we're getting closer to the Messiah's return, that people who do not know him can have a dynamic, life-changing experience with the living Yeshua, with the living Jesus. And what that means is that we need to have a much more adult-like, mature approach to the issues of the day. And do we have that? That is what apologetics is here to evaluate and to discuss. And if we don't, then to issue the appropriate challenges. And in this case, I think that the younger you are, the more you are exposed to the different online technological tools, and younger people are more likely to raise these questions than some of those who are more of the pioneering baby boomer generation. I mean, my standard has always been, if an issue or a topic could have been discussed at my late father's Sunday school class, 1987 to 1992, we should surely be able to discuss it now in the Messianic world. I mean, just do the math. That was 38 years ago. And so, no, I do not believe in theistic evolution, but I don't shy away from some of the questions that it raises. And in this case, what we just looked at today, one of the major things which necessarily has to be evaluated from it is, well, are human beings quantitatively indifferent than animals? And along with that, would a human being experience a death quantitatively indifferent from an animal or not? And that's actually a really easy one, because some of the more complicated matters is, like, if human beings just evolve from lower life forms, is what we consider sin, is it something which comes from some kind of schism between God and man and woman, or is it because of primitive chemical processes in the brain, among other things? So this is not an easy subject, but it is something which does come up, and it's going to come up in increasing frequency just because of when we are in history. All right, so that concludes our theology roundup. You can be guaranteed that next week we'll be getting into some more provocative topics. There is a lot of news which has taken place since we met yesterday. I already mentioned the breakup, the schism between President Trump and Elon Musk. And I got to be honest with you, I've never been comfortable with the Trump-Musk partnership, but it is something which is going to affect us as we just look through some of the news events, some of the headlines over the past day or so. Now, all of these news stories will be are listed and they'll be archived when this episode is available for you to look at on messianicapologetics.net. So you can go look at the news articles, read, watch, whatever you need to. We always do the news after the theology roundup because, of course, it is time sensitive. All right, so kind of piggybacking on what we just reviewed, this is from the channel Smash Baals. Of course, Smash Baals says a lot of provocative statements. He definitely believes in replacement theology, is a Christian nationalist. But here he says, Christians shouldn't be embarrassed to believe God created the world in 6 literal days. Marriage is between one man and woman. God flooded the entire earth. Jonah was really swallowed by a fish. Jesus literally rose from the grave. A donkey actually talked. Okay, I know a lot of people who would consider themselves broadly conservative, and they would affirm without any discussion most of what is listed right there. Some of the things where they would say further investigation, further discussion is important would be God created the world in 6 literal days. They would say the Hebrew of Genesis 1 says 6 yamim. Is that 24-hour days, or is it some kind of unspecified period of time per the Hebrew yom? Likewise, they would think that more investigation is required for God flooded the entire earth. Genesis 6 does describe a massive ecological disaster, but did it cover every single square inch of the planet, or only as far out as humanity had settled? I mean, these are conservative evangelical discussions. It's unfortunate that a lot of people in the Messianic community are not aware of them. But people who definitely believe that Adam and Eve were created by divine fiat, placed in a Garden of Eden somewhere in what we call the Middle East today, those who adhere to more of an old earth creation orientation, they'd say, well, what do we do about the greater universe? And does that indicate, based on observable science, that it was 6 24-hour days or 6 long periods of time? Likewise, based on geological evidence and based on the text of Genesis 6 through 9, was the flood of Noah required to cover every single square inch of the planet, or could it have been limited to as far as humanity spread out? As I said, these are conservative evangelical questions, and I'm surprised in the 30 years our family's been in the Messianic community, we don't see them discussed or even brought up that much. Now, people who ask these questions, here's something which came across my Instagram feed. It's from 2 days ago from the channel Astronomers. Discovery of Kepler 725c, a habitable zone super-Earth around a sun-like star. Some people think, well, you're compromising the scriptures if you think that the days of Genesis 1 were possibly long periods of time. Actually, believers who ask those questions, even if it's just a matter of philosophical diatribe, they ask those questions because of, well, what do we do with things like this? Earth-like planet found in habitable zone of sun-like star. They ask the question because, yes, we have the witness of the Holy Scriptures, but then we have the witness of nature. And we have to sort through things like the speed of light, distance measured in light years, not miles or kilometers. We have to deal with observable science. What do we do with some of these things? That is why questions are raised regarding the length of the creation days or yamim, the extent of the flood. It's because of observable science. It's not because of people trying to compromise the word of God. It's trying to deal with, God made this good creation. I have to sort through this. And I don't want to be somebody who just ditches all science and says it's all from Satan, it's all from hell. No, I need to be able to sort through this and have the two not be in stark disagreement or contrast. I need to be able to reconcile the two together in a reasonable way, which does justice to the Holy Scriptures, as well as recognizes the observable scientific evidence. That's why people come to diverse conclusions. It's not always, as some people think, you're trying to compromise the Word of God. No, they're trying to give an adequate hearing to the witness of Holy Scripture and the witness of observable nature. And of course, there are people who come to different conclusions, but everyone has to, go through this at some point in their life. Okay, now getting into more current events from the Epoch Times yesterday, June the 5th. President Donald Trump has ordered an investigation into whether officials in the Biden administration illegally exercised presidential power by using an auto pen, a device that reproduces a presidential signature without President Joe Biden's direction. Okay, this is all over mainstream news right now. This is not going to end well, I think. Of course, earlier from the past weekend, President Trump put something on his Truth Social account implying that Joe Biden was a mindless, soulless clone. I still don't know what to make of that. But a lot of people definitely think that, well, no one was really at home with Joe Biden, and how many things were signed presumably by him when they really were not. This is going to get more and more interesting and probably heated. Okay, from the X channel, Visegrad 24, the former HTS Emir al-Julani and now Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara is expected to visit the United States this coming September. The visit will include a speech at the United Nations, marking the first address by a Syrian president at the UN in 60 years. Of course, this is definitely something which can change. September is June, July, August. It's a little less than 3 months from now. But what kind of changes, what kind of reshifting is taking place in the Middle East? And are we going to see Syria normalize relations with the state of Israel and possibly join the Abraham Accords? Okay, we're now going to be following some of the Trump-Musk stories. These are the stories as I encountered them passively on social media. From open source intel yesterday, Trump on Elon Musk. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk, even with a black eye. I said, "Do you want a little makeup?" He said, "No, I don't think so," which is interesting. Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore. Of course, there's a lot of people talking about how or why he got that black eye. And does that represent something, or was it just an accident? All right, from My Charisma, just going to briefly touch on this. This is from yesterday, June the 5th. Court filings reveal shocking information about Robert Morris Gateway elders. We mentioned yesterday the story from the Christian Post. It's now hit Charisma. You can glance through this. The Gateway situation, yes, it affects American evangelicalism. It affects us more locally in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And of course, it also affects the Messianic community because of the Gateway Center for Israel, as well as the King's University with its Messianic Jewish Studies program. So, like a lot of these dramas, you have to work through these things yourself, but it's terrible. Okay, back to Trump-Musk from the New York Post yesterday, June the 5th. Tech mogul Elon Musk suggested that President Trump should be impeached and replaced with Vice President J.D. Vance after an explosive bitter rift erupted between the two billionaires. The broadside came after Musk sniped that the Trump administration wasn't releasing documents related to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein because the president would be mentioned and potentially implicated in them. And some of the, I would say, beginning stages of this, of course, had to do with Trump wanting to pass his big, beautiful bill. And Musk, who was involved in DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, said, this bill is loaded with pork. It doesn't cut enough of unnecessary spending. And then this leads to that, which has now been manifested in this rift, this breakup. Okay, also from the New York Post. Yesterday, Elon Musk went nuclear on President Trump Thursday, accusing him of withholding information from the public about Jeffrey Epstein because it would implicate him. The disgraced financier's association with Trump has been known for years, as the two were videotaped and photographed together at parties in the 1990s. Of course, what about the Epstein list? What about the P. Diddy list? These are things which Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has been having to sort through. These are the matters which a lot of people have been wanting to see released. It's one of the main reasons they voted for Donald Trump, because his administration was supposed to be transparent and declassify JFK and RFK, MLK, and all these other matters. So Elon Musk is saying, yeah, let's see this because Donald Trump is in it. And our next story, okay, this is actually Elon Musk's X post. Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DGT. And I think, interestingly enough, there have been a lot of those on the Democratic side of the aisle who have said, yes, let's release all the Epstein files. And of course, there's a lot of speculation as to, okay, has Elon Musk now decisively turned against Donald Trump? Or is this just a ploy to actually see the Epstein files get released and to have major opposition Democratic support to do so? We don't know. But this is some of the talk which is circulating on social media right now. Okay, back to a story from My Charisma yesterday, June the 5th. Face peeler aliens, UFOs, and underground bunkers. What's the government hiding? So this comes from a story, Timothy Alberino. In the heart of rural Peru, a chilling legend has reemerged with terrifying real-world implications. Reports have surfaced from an isolated indigenous community claiming they are under assault by what they believe to be extraterrestrial beings. Timothy Alberino recently discussed with Sean Ryan how this village and the terror of the face peeler aliens isn't just a myth, but a real-life situation for many out there. Alberino himself made his way to talk to people who have encountered these horrifying beings for a first-hand account. The story, both bizarre and unnerving, intersects with ancient mythology, military operations, and questions about forbidden knowledge kept from the public eye. And of course, more speculation about things which are in the sphere of influence of the Nephilim of Genesis 6. That's basically what this comes down to. And of course, there are a lot of people who don't think that from Genesis 6, fallen angels and human females cohabitated, producing a race of Nephilim or giants, much less that when Yeshua said in the Olivet Discourse that the time before his return would be like the days of Noah, not only involving eating, marrying, giving in marriage, all of that, but a return of the Nephilim. But people in the religious world are talking about this. And of course, for an entity like Charisma, it is going to get them a lot of attention and a lot of clicks. But I definitely have no problem talking about the whole issue of the Nephilim. Okay, from Open Source Intel. Yesterday, Netanyahu confirms, on the advice of security officials, we activated clans in Gaza that oppose Hamas. This is only good, saving the lives of our soldiers. Of course, the main thing is there are people in Gaza who don't support Hamas, and they are helping Israel with their operations against Hamas, according to Open Source Intel, at least. Excuse me. Got 5 more stories. Okay, from Visegrad 24, concurrent with this, influential clans and tribal leaders affiliated with Fatah in southern Gaza have issued a strong statement condemning Hamas. They accuse the group of rejecting the current ceasefire proposal and hostage deal, choosing instead to cling to its hardline positions, even as the humanitarian and political costs continue to rise. So, yes, there are those who think that Hamas has done them wrong, at least, and we need to be more cooperative and flexible with Israel. From Instagram Newsmax from yesterday, Elon Musk asked if it's time to create a new political party in America amid his war of words with President Trump, one that actually represents the 80% in the middle. Yes, I have no doubt that there are people in America who they definitely don't like the Democrats and they hold their nose with some of the Republicans. But they vote Republican at least because they think it's the lesser of two evils. But they're neither left-wing nor right-wing. They might be, to the right of center on a lot of issues, to the left of center on a number of issues. I myself would broadly be in that category. How much of this is just talk? How much of this is just, sour grapes over the apparent schism between Trump and Musk? We don't know. But yes, we are definitely affected by this right now. From open source intel yesterday, Axios, Israel will hold off on striking Iran's nuclear program until it's clear the talks have collapsed. The White House believes President Trump's deadline expires next week, and no new round of talks is expected this weekend. Okay, so where are we going to be next week? Are we going to possibly see renewed negotiations with Iran over their nuclear program, or are we going to be approaching some kind of a military state of alert? Pray. From leading report, this is from last night, breaking, Elon Musk agrees that he and President Trump should make peace for the benefit of the country. Yeah, so how much of these different things, Epstein, create a new political party, how much of it's just, hey, look, Trump, you pissed me off and I'm going to just say what I think? How much of it is really serious? How much of it is political theater? We don't know. We'll wait and see. I did see something before getting on that they're trying to figure out, possibly the White House, a phone conversation between Trump and Musk. We'll see. Okay, and then finally, and this is a story I'm sure some of you all have been following, the mayoral elections in New York City. Zoran Mamdani on why he refuses to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. This is one of the major candidates for mayor of New York. He says, I'm not comfortable supporting any state that has a hierarchy of citizenship based on the basis of religion or anything else. Equality should be enshrined in every country in the world. That's my belief. Okay, now we know that Israel is the only Jewish state in the world, although there are various Islamic states, countries where the religion of Islam is pretty much the state religion. The Jewish state is there to preserve Jewish identity, Jewish culture, the Jewish worldview. But there are, in modern Israel, citizens who are Muslim, citizens who are Christian, Jews who are atheist. Israel is actually more pluralistic than not. But for our purposes here, and this is what I know concerns a lot of people, both in the Jewish community and the Messianic community, this individual could become mayor of New York City. And of course, New York has the largest Jewish population outside of the state of Israel. So what does this mean? What is it going to do? What does it say about the state, the status of America right now? What does it reflect on in terms of the religious tensions often inflamed by the Islamic community, among others. We wait and see, but I know a lot of people are not happy about this, and justifiably so. So yes, we have a lot going on right now, and this is not the time to be timid. This is the time to conduct the work of the kingdom, discuss the uncomfortable matters we've been putting off for the other day. That day is now. Also to monitor all the different things which affect us as the people of God in the world, whether it's here at home, the Trump-Musk controversy, which, by the way, when we concluded yesterday, I didn't know anything about that. I caught that in the afternoon. We don't know what's going to happen over the next several days, over this weekend, but we know that the Lord is in control. He listens to the prayers and the pleas of his people. Pray for sanity to prevail. In my work with Messianic Apologetics, my goal is to see us all stabilized in faith, because things are going to get more and more complicated as we get closer to the Lord's return. And we need to take advantage of the time we have with religious freedom, with relative freedom of speech, to make a difference and to resolve some of these controversial issues now, because in the future, we don't know what wild cards are going to manifest. We don't know how we're going to have to work through things, reason through things, discuss issues which we can't predict, we can't foresee. So maybe all these things we do know about now, we need to resolve, so our energies in the future can be spent on the things we don't know about. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and donations toward all of our ministry efforts. You can give online at outreachisrael.net/support. We'll see you again on Monday with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, Shabbat Shalom, and take care.